The Zephyrians arrive. The day the Zephyrians arrived was like any other on Earth, chaotic, unpredictable, and full of life. As their sleek, crystalline ships descended from the sky, humanity reacted with a mix of awe, fear, and unbridled curiosity that would come to define their relationship with the aliens. Ambassador Lyra Vega stood at the forefront of the welcoming committee, her heart racing with excitement. As the ship's doors opened with a soft hiss, she straightened her posture and plastered on her most diplomatic smile. The aliens that emerged were tall, slender beings with iridescent skin and large, multifaceted eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. The lead Zephyrian, who introduced himself as High Counselor Zax, spoke in a melodious voice that seemed to reverberate in the air. "Greetings, humans of Earth. We come in peace and with great interest in your species." Lyra stepped forward, extending her hand in greeting. "Welcome to Earth, High Counselor Zax. We're honored by your presence and eager to learn from you." Zax stared at her outstretched hand, his head tilting in confusion. Lyra realized her mistake and quickly explained the custom of handshaking. The alien's eyes widened in what she could only assume was surprise. "You willingly touch appendages with strangers. Is this not a significant health risk?" Zax asked, his voice tinged with concern. Lyra chuckled. "We have immune systems that can handle a little handshake. Besides, it's a sign of trust and goodwill." This explanation seemed to perplex the Zephyrians even further. As they were escorted to the conference room for official talks, Lyra couldn't help but notice their wary glances at every human interaction they witnessed. The real shock came during the formal dinner that evening. As the first course was served, High Counselor Zax watched in horror as the humans began consuming their meals. You put dead organic matter in your mouths and chemically break it down inside your bodies?" he asked, his voice quivering with a mix of fascination and disgust. Dr. Marcus Chen, the lead xenobiologist on the human team, nodded enthusiastically. "It's called eating. It's how we obtain energy and nutrients. Don't you have a similar process?" Zax shook his head, his iridescent skin shimmering with agitation. "We absorb energy directly from our environment. This eating seems incredibly inefficient and potentially dangerous. What if you consume something toxic?" "Oh, we do that sometimes," Lyra chimed in with a grin. "We call it trying new cuisines, or a night out drinking." The Zephyrians exchanged alarmed glances. "You intentionally ingest toxins?" Another alien, introduced as Science Officer Vex, asked incredulously. "Well, alcohol isn't exactly a toxin," Dr. Chen began, but Lyra cut him off with a laugh. "Actually, it kind of is, but it's fun. It helps us relax, socialize, sometimes make questionable decisions that make for great stories later." The look of utter bewilderment on the aliens' faces was priceless. High Counselor Zax leaned in, his voice low and concerned. "Ambassador Vega, are you implying that humans deliberately impair their cognitive functions for entertainment?" Lyra nodded, raising her glass of wine in a mock toast. "Welcome to Earth, my friends. You ain't seen nothing yet." As the dinner progressed, the Zephyrians watched in a mix of horror and fascination as the humans engaged in what they considered increasingly baffling behaviors. They laughed at jokes, a concept the aliens struggled to grasp. They debated politics and philosophy with passion, sometimes raising their voices in ways that made the Zephyrians flinch, expecting violence to break out at any moment. But what truly threw the aliens for a loop was when dessert was served, a beautiful array of spicy chocolate truffles. "Now these might be a bit intense for your first time," Lyra warned, popping one into her mouth with relish. "They're made with ghost peppers." "Ghost peppers," Zax repeated, his multifaceted eyes blinking rapidly. Dr. Chen excitedly jumped in. "Oh yes, they're one of the spiciest peppers on Earth. They contain capsaicin, which basically tricks our pain receptors into thinking we're being burned alive." The Zephyrians recoiled in unified horror. "And you consume this willingly?" Vex asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, absolutely." Lyra grinned, reaching for another truffle. "It's exhilarating. The burn, the rush of endorphins. It's quite the experience." High Counselor Zack stood abruptly, his iridescent skin pulsing with what seemed to be a mix of concern and fascination. "Ambassador Vega, Dr. Chen, I believe we need to reevaluate our initial assessment of your species. Your behaviors are unprecedented in our experience." Lyra stood as well, her expression serious but her eyes twinkling with amusement. "High Counselor, I assure you, we've only scratched the surface of human insanity, as you might call it. But I promise you, there's method to our madness." As the Zephyrians filed out of the dining room, still looking somewhat shell-shocked, Lyra couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Humanity might not be the most advanced species in the galaxy, but they certainly were the most interesting. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a galactic adventure that would challenge both humans and Zephyrians in ways they could never have imagined. The universe was about to learn that sometimes a little insanity was exactly what was needed to solve the biggest problems. As the night drew to a close, Lyra caught Dr. Chen's eye, and they shared a knowing smile. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new misunderstandings, and new opportunities to showcase the unique brilliance of humanity. The galaxy wasn't ready for them, but ready or not, here they came. The Galactic Challenge. In the weeks following first contact, the Zephyrians observed humanity with a mixture of fascination and trepidation. Their reports back to the Galactic Council were filled with accounts of human unpredictability, risk-taking, and what they termed controlled chaos. The Council, intrigued but cautious, decided to put Earth to the test. On a crisp autumn morning, High Counselor Zax called for an urgent meeting with Ambassador Lyra Vega and Dr. Marcus Chen. The Galactic Council has decreed that Earth must pass a series of challenges to prove its readiness for integration into the wider galactic community, Zax announced, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with anticipation. Lyra leaned forward, her interest piqued. "What kind of challenges are we talking about, High Counselor?" "There will be 3 tests," Zax explained. "A test of wisdom, a test of technology, and a test of unity. You have 1 Earth month to prepare. The stakes are high. Success means acceptance into the Galactic Federation. Failure." He paused dramatically. "Failure means isolation." Dr. Chen's eyes widened. "Isolation? You mean Earth would be quarantined?" Zax confirmed. "For the safety of the galaxy, of course." Lyra stood, her expression determined. "We accept your challenge, High Counselor. Humanity has faced long odds before. We'll be ready." As news of the challenge spread, the world rallied together in a way rarely seen before. Scientists, philosophers, engineers, and leaders from every nation joined forces to prepare for the unknown trials ahead. The day of the first test arrived all too quickly. Representatives from various alien races gathered to observe as Zax presented the challenge. "The test of wisdom," he announced, "is to solve the enigma of eternity, a puzzle that has confounded the greatest minds in the galaxy for millennia." A holographic projection appeared, showing a complex, ever-shifting geometric pattern. "You have 1 hour," Zax stated. The human team, led by Dr. Chen, stared at the puzzle in bewilderment. Traditional problem-solving methods seemed useless against the constantly changing form. Suddenly, a young artist named Maya spoke up. "It's not a puzzle to be solved," she said softly. "It's a dance to be joined." Before anyone could stop her, Maya stepped into the hologram. To everyone's astonishment, the pattern began to respond to her movements. She twirled and swayed, and the geometric shapes flowed around her in harmony. Dr. Chen caught on quickly. "It's interactive. Quick, everyone. Think outside the box. Engage with it." What followed was a sight that left the alien observers slack-jawed. Humans began to sing, dance, and even tell jokes to the hologram. A child's laughter caused the pattern to burst into colorful fractals. A poet's verse made it swirl in lyrical waves. As the hour drew to a close, the enigma of eternity had transformed into a breathtaking symphony of light and motion, reflecting the diverse creativity of humanity. Zax's voice was filled with awe as he declared, "The test of wisdom is passed." The second challenge came a week later. The test of technology, Zax announced, is to create a device capable of communicating across dimensional barriers. The world's brightest engineers and physicists gathered, poring over advanced alien schematics and theories. But as the deadline loomed, they seemed no closer to a solution. It was a group of teenage hackers who cracked the code. "The aliens are thinking too linearly," explained Zoe, their leader. "We don't need to break the dimensional barriers. We can exploit their weak points." Using a mind-bending combination of quantum computing, meme theory, and what they called weaponized nonsense, the hackers created a device that didn't so much communicate across dimensions as it did convince the dimensions to communicate with each other. When activated, the device filled the air with a cacophony of sounds from 1,000 realities. Zax's exoskeleton vibrated with shock. "Impossible," he muttered. "Brilliant, but impossible." "The test of technology," he declared, still shaking his head in disbelief, "is passed." The final challenge was announced. The test of unity requires you to present a unified global decision on joining the Galactic Federation. You have 1 day to reach consensus among your entire species. This, Lyra thought, might be the toughest challenge yet. Humanity had never been known for its ability to agree on anything, let alone something of this magnitude. But once again, humanity surprised everyone, including themselves. Instead of trying to force a single decision, they embraced their diversity. A platform was created where every human could vote and voice their opinion. Discussions raged across the globe, in person and online. When the day was up, Lyra presented their decision to Zax. "We, the human race, have decided to keep deciding," she announced. "Our strength lies not in unanimous agreement, but in our ability to disagree productively, to constantly question and challenge each other. We vote to join the Federation, but we also vote to always reserve the right to dissent, to offer alternative viewpoints, and to change our minds." Zax was silent for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he began to laugh, a tinkling, crystalline sound. "Only humans," he said, shaking his head in amusement, "would respond to a demand for unity by institutionalizing disagreement. And yet, it works. You've shown that unity doesn't have to mean uniformity. The test of unity is passed." As news of humanity's success spread, celebrations erupted around the world. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not by conforming to alien expectations, but by embracing their own unique blend of creativity, innovation, and beautiful chaos. Lyra and Dr. Chen watched the festivities from the roof of the UN building, sharing a bottle of champagne. "You know," Lyra mused, "I think we might have just changed the galaxy's definition of intelligent life." Chen grinned, raising his glass in a toast. "To humanity, confounding aliens and defying expectations across the universe." As their laughter joined the joyous sounds of celebration below, neither of them could have predicted the challenges that still lay ahead. Humanity had proven itself worthy of the stars, but the true test was yet to come. Crisis on Novus Prime. The euphoria of passing the Galactic Challenge was still fresh when alarm bells rang across the newly established Earth Embassy on Zephyria. Ambassador Lyra Vega rushed to the command center, her heart pounding. Dr. Marcus Chen was already there, his face grim as he studied the holographic displays. "What's the situation?" Lyra asked, her voice tense. High Counselor Zax turned to them, his iridescent skin pulsing with distress. "We've received a distress signal from Novus Prime, one of our oldest colony worlds. They're experiencing unprecedented seismic activity. The planet is tearing itself apart." Dr. Chen's eyes widened. "How many inhabitants?" "Over 10 billion, Zax replied, his voice heavy. "Our rescue fleet is en route, but they're days away. We fear it might be too late." Lyra and Marcus exchanged a look. "What if we help?" Lyra suggested. Zax's multifaceted eyes blinked rapidly. "You? But your technology is primitive compared to ours. What could you possibly do?" A slow smile spread across Lyra's face. "High Counselor, I think it's time you learned that advanced technology isn't everything. Sometimes you need a bit of human ingenuity and a lot of crazy." Within hours, Earth had mobilized. It wasn't a sleek, advanced fleet that launched towards Novus Prime, but a motley assortment of retrofitted cargo ships, experimental aircraft, and even a repurposed oil rig. Leading the charge was the SS Impossible, a ship that looked like it was held together by duct tape and sheer optimism. As they approached Novus Prime, the scale of the disaster became clear. The planet's surface was a chaos of erupting volcanoes and widening chasms. The Zephyrian rescue ships hovered helplessly, their advanced technology useless against the planet's violent upheaval. "This is insane," Zax muttered, watching from the command ship as the human fleet began to descend into the maelstrom. "They'll be torn apart." But the humans had a plan. It was risky, barely tested, and by all logical standards, completely insane. In other words, it was perfectly human. The SS Impossible led the charge, diving into the planet's turbulent atmosphere. As it descended, it began to unfurl what looked like an enormous net made of a shimmering, almost liquid-like material. "What is that?" Zax asked, his voice filled with wonder. Dr. Chen grinned. "We call it the quantum web. It's a network of nanobots that can manipulate gravitational fields on a quantum level. In theory, it should be able to stabilize the tectonic plates long enough for evacuation." "In theory." Zax's voice rose an octave. "You mean this has never been tested?" Lyra shrugged. "No time like the present." As the quantum web spread across the planet's surface, something remarkable began to happen. The violent quakes began to subside. It wasn't a complete cessation, but it was enough to begin evacuations. The next challenge was getting people off the planet quickly enough. This was where the rest of the human fleet came in. The cargo ships, their holds retrofitted with makeshift cryopods, began scooping up Novus Prime's inhabitants by the thousands. The oil rig, now a floating city, provided temporary shelter for millions. But it wasn't just the big solutions that made the difference. All across the planet, individual acts of human bravery and ingenuity were saving lives. A team of human miners used their experience with cave-ins to rescue a group trapped in a collapsed building. A human chef managed to rig up an emergency filtration system using nothing but kitchen equipment, providing clean water for a refugee camp. As hours turned into days, the impossible began to happen. The evacuation, deemed hopeless by the Zephyrians, was working. Ship after ship lifted off from the dying planet, filled with survivors. But just as victory seemed within reach, disaster struck. A particularly violent quake shook the planet, threatening to tear apart the quantum web. If it failed, the planet would tear itself apart in minutes, dooming millions still waiting for rescue. "We need more power to the web," Dr. Chen shouted over the comm. "We're losing stability." Lyra's mind raced. They needed a massive energy source, and fast. Her eyes fell on the SS Impossible, still hovering above the planet's surface. An idea formed. A crazy, terrible, brilliant idea. "Marcus," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her heart, "what if we overloaded the Impossible's engines? The energy burst might be enough to reinforce the web." Dr. Chen's face paled. "Lyra, that would destroy the ship. Anyone on board would." "I know," Lyra cut him off. "That's why I'm going to do it myself." Before anyone could stop her, Lyra was racing towards the Impossible's shuttle bay. As she prepared to board, a crystalline hand gripped her arm. She turned to see Zax, his eyes swirling with a mix of emotions she couldn't quite decipher. "Ambassador Vega, he said, his voice filled with awe. "You would sacrifice yourself for an alien world." Lyra smiled softly. "That's what humans do, Zax. We help, no matter the cost." To her surprise, Zax straightened up, his iridescent skin glowing with determination. "Then let me join you. My knowledge of Zephyrian technology could be crucial." Together, human and Zephyrian boarded the Impossible. As they worked feverishly to overload the engines, Lyra couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. "You know," she said to Zax as they rerouted power couplings, "this wasn't exactly how I imagined improving human-Zephyrian relations." Zax's crystalline laughter joined hers. "I'm beginning to understand why your species has survived this long. Your courage is commendable." As the ship began to shake around them, Lyra placed her hand on Zax's shoulder. "It's been an honor, High Counselor." "The honor is mine, Ambassador," Zax replied. They braced for the inevitable as the engines reached critical mass. The ship exploded in a spectacular burst of energy, reinforcing the quantum web and stabilizing the planet long enough to complete the evacuation. But as the light faded, a miracle occurred. Where the impossible had been, a shimmering bubble of energy remained. Inside, clinging to each other, were Lyra and Zax, surrounded by the liquid-like substance of the quantum web. As rescue ships raced to retrieve them, news of their survival spread across the fleet. Cheers erupted from human and Zephyrian alike. Against all odds, they had done it. Novus Prime was lost, but its people were saved. As Lyra and Zax were brought aboard the command ship, they were met with a sight neither could have imagined weeks ago. Humans and Zephyrians working side by side, their differences forgotten in the face of a common goal. Dr. Chen embraced Lyra, tears in his eyes. "Don't you ever do that again," he muttered. Lyra grinned weakly. "No promises, Marcus. We've got a whole galaxy of trouble to get into now." As medical teams swarmed around them, Lyra caught Zax's eye. The High Counselor nodded, a newfound respect evident in his gaze. In that moment, both knew that the relationship between their species had fundamentally changed. The galaxy would never be the same. But as the adrenaline of their narrow escape faded, a sobering realization set in. The crisis on Novus Prime was just the beginning. Something far more dangerous was stirring in the depths of space, a threat that would require all of humanity's insanity, and perhaps a touch of newfound alien wisdom, to overcome. The threat from the void. In the aftermath of the Novus Prime crisis, a new era of cooperation dawned between humans and Zephyrians. The galaxy marveled at the unlikely alliance, but peace was short-lived. As the dust settled, a sinister shadow loomed on the cosmic horizon. Ambassador Lyra Vega stood before the Galactic Council, her posture tense but determined. Beside her, High Counselor Zax's iridescent skin pulsed with anxiety. The chamber was filled with representatives from 100 worlds, all waiting with bated breath. "Esteemed members of the Council," Lyra began, her voice steady, "we bring grave news. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected an anomaly at the edge of the galaxy. We believe it to be the vanguard of an invasion force known as the Void Collective." Murmurs of disbelief and fear rippled through the assembly. Zax stepped forward, his multifaceted eyes scanning the crowd. "The Void Collective is not a myth as many of you have believed. They are a hive-mind entity that consumes entire civilizations, assimilating their knowledge and technology. They have already devoured 3 galaxies in their relentless expansion." The council erupted into chaos. Amid the panicked shouting, a cold, mechanical voice cut through the din. "Your extinction is inevitable. Resistance is illogical." All eyes turned to the holographic projection that had appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a roiling mass of darkness, studded with points of sickly light. The Void Collective. Dr. Marcus Chen, who had been quietly analyzing data in the corner, spoke up. "They've hacked our communications. This isn't just a message. It's a declaration of war." The Void's voice continued, emotionless and implacable. Your technologies, your cultures, your very essence will be added to our own. Prepare for assimilation." As the transmission cut off, the council chamber descended into pandemonium. Species that had been at odds for millennia now found themselves facing a common, unimaginable threat. Lyra's voice rose above the chaos. "Everyone, please, we don't have time for panic. The Void Collective will reach our galaxy within a month. We need a plan, and we need it now." Zax nodded in agreement. "Ambassador Vega is right. We must unite, or we will fall divided." Over the next few weeks, the greatest minds of the galaxy convened on Earth, now serving as the unlikely headquarters for the Resistance. The plan that emerged was audacious, combining the most advanced alien technologies with humanity's penchant for thinking outside the box. The core of the strategy revolved around a device that Dr. Chen dubbed the Pandora's Box. It was a quantum entanglement engine, designed to create a cascading reality distortion that could potentially disrupt the Void Collective's hive mind. "The problem," Chen explained to the assembled galactic leaders, "is that we have no way to deliver the Pandora's Box to the heart of the Void Collective. Their defenses are impenetrable to any known form of propulsion or stealth technology." A heavy silence fell over the room. The plan seemed doomed before it could even begin. Then a voice piped up from the back of the room. "What if we don't try to sneak it in? What if we just knock on the front door?" All eyes turned to see Zoe, the teenage hacker who had helped Earth pass the technology test. She stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with that uniquely human blend of inspiration and madness. "Look," she continued, her fingers flying over a holographic interface. "The Void Collective assimilates knowledge. Right. So let's give them something to assimilate. We build a ship, the craziest, most interesting ship the galaxy has ever seen. Fill it with all sorts of weird tech, both alien and human. Make it so irresistible that the Void Collective can't help but want to assimilate it." "And the Pandora's Box?" Lyra asked, a smile tugging at her lips as she began to see where this was going. Zoe grinned. "We hide it in plain sight. Make it look like just another piece of weird tech. They'll bring it right into the heart of their collective." The room erupted into a mixture of excited chatter and skeptical murmurs. It was insane, illogical, and flew in the face of all conventional military strategy. In other words, it was perfectly human. Over the next weeks, Operation Trojan Horse took shape. The ship they built was a monstrosity that would have made Rube Goldberg proud. It incorporated technology from every species in the Alliance, along with human innovations that ranged from ingenious to seemingly ridiculous. There was a propulsion system that ran on bad jokes, a navigation computer that worked by interpreting interpretive dance, and a defense shield powered by the quantum uncertainty of whether a cat in a box was alive or dead. And hidden among all this chaos was the Pandora's Box, disguised as a peculiarly advanced coffee maker. As the day of reckoning approached, Lyra stood before the assembled crews. A mix of humans and aliens who had volunteered for this suicide mission. "I won't lie to you," she said, her voice carrying across the hangar. "Our chances are slim. But slim chances are a human specialty. Each of you represents the best of your species. Together, we are the galaxy's last, best hope." Zax stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Lyra. "Once, I thought humans were insane," he said, his voice tinged with warmth. "Now I realize that sometimes, insanity is exactly what we need. It has been an honor to work alongside you all." As the crews boarded their ships, Lyra felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Dr. Chen, his eyes filled with determination. "I'm coming with you," he said simply. Lyra nodded, knowing better than to argue. As they boarded the flagship, christened the HSS Pandora, Lyra couldn't help but smile. Humans, standing alongside aliens, about to attempt the craziest plan in galactic history. It was, she thought, exactly as it should be. The fleet lifted off, a bizarre armada heading towards an unimaginable enemy. As they approached the swirling darkness at the edge of the galaxy, Lyra took a deep breath. Well, she muttered, here goes everything. The Void Collective loomed before them, a writhing mass of darkness that seemed to devour the very stars. As the human-led fleet approached, a tendril of void reached out, enveloping the HSS Pandora. Inside the ship, alarms blared as systems went haywire. But amidst the chaos, Lyra, Chen, and the crew shared a look of grim satisfaction. Phase 1 of the plan was complete. They were in. Now, as they were pulled deeper into the heart of the Void Collective, the real challenge began. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, resting on the shoulders of a group of humans and aliens, armed with nothing but a crazy plan and an unshakable determination. As the darkness closed in around them, Lyra gripped the arms of her captain's chair. "All right, Void Collective," she muttered. "Let's see how you handle a little human chaos." A new understanding. The interior of the Void Collective defied comprehension. The HSS Pandora and its crew found themselves in a realm where the laws of physics seemed more like gentle suggestions. Reality warped and twisted around them, a dizzying kaleidoscope of assimilated worlds and civilizations. Lyra's voice cut through the stunned silence on the bridge. Status report. Dr. Chen's fingers danced over his console, his brow furrowed in concentration. The good news is, we're still alive. The bad news is, well, everything else. Our systems are going haywire. The void is trying to assimilate our technology. A cold, emotionless voice echoed through the ship. Your resistance is amusing, but futile. Your knowledge will be added to our own. Zax's crystalline form shimmered with tension. They're probing our defenses. We don't have much time. Lyra nodded grimly. All right, people. This is it. Initiative Pandora is a go. Zoe, you're up. The teenage hacker cracked her knuckles, a mischievous glint in her eye. Time to introduce the void to the chaos of the human mind. Initiating cognitive overflow. With a few keystrokes, Zoe unleashed a digital tsunami. The ship's databanks, purposely filled with the most confusing, contradictory, and downright bizarre information humanity could muster, began uploading directly into the Void Collective's hive mind. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The Void's orderly assimilation process was thrown into chaos. Alien minds, long subsumed into the collective, began to stir with long-forgotten individuality. It's working, Chen exclaimed. The Void's trying to make sense of the data, but it can't. It's creating logical paradoxes throughout its system. Lyra allowed herself a small smile. Excellent. Phase 2, everyone. Let's give them a taste of human creativity. Across the fleet, crews sprang into action. Ships began to move in patterns that defied traditional space combat logic. Some spun in dizzying spirals. Others flew in formation to create giant, rude gestures in space. One particularly daring pilot was attempting to recreate the choreography from an ancient human video called Gangnam Style, using their ship's movement. The Void Collective's responses became increasingly erratic. Tendrils of darkness lashed out randomly, its once coordinated attack dissolving into chaos. They're off balance, Zax observed, his multifaceted eyes wide with amazement. I've never seen anything like it. Lyra's grip tightened on her chair. Now for the coup de grace. Dr. Chen, activate the Pandora's box. Chen nodded, reaching for what looked like an ordinary coffee maker. With a complex series of twists and turns, the device transformed, unfolding into a pulsing core of energy. Pandora's box activated, Chen reported. Ready on your mark, Ambassador. Lyra took a deep breath. This was it, the moment that would decide the fate of the galaxy. Do it. The Pandora's box hummed to life, releasing waves of quantum energy that rippled through the fabric of reality. The effect on the Void Collective was catastrophic. The hive mind, already reeling from the onslaught of human chaos, began to fracture. Across the fleet, cheers erupted as the darkness began to recede. But their celebration was premature. The Void, in its death throes, lashed out with the last of its strength. A massive tendril of dark energy speared towards the HSS Pandora. "Brace for impact," Lyra shouted. The ship shuddered violently as the energy struck. Systems failed across the board, and for a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as though all was lost. Then something extraordinary happened. As the void's energy engulfed the ship, it came into contact with a maelstrom of human creativity and alien technology. The result was a reaction that no one could have predicted. A blinding light erupted from the HSS Pandora, expanding outward in a shockwave that engulfed the entire battlefield. When it faded, the void was gone. But so was the fleet. In its place was something new, a swirling nebula of energy, pulsing with life and possibility. And at its heart, the HSS Pandora floated, transformed into something that was neither fully ship nor fully living entity. As the crew regained consciousness, they found themselves changed. Human, alien, and even the remnants of the void had been merged into something entirely new, a harmony of consciousness that retained individuality while sharing a deep, intrinsic connection. Lyra, her form now a shimmering amalgam of human and energy, turned to her equally transformed crew. Is everyone all right?" Chen, now a being of pure thought and mathematical precision, chuckled. "I think all right might be an understatement, Lyra. We've become something more." Zax, his crystalline form now infused with swirling galaxies, nodded in agreement. "We have transcended. The knowledge of countless civilizations, the creativity of humanity, the unity of the void, all in perfect balance." As the transformed fleet regrouped, messages flooded in from across the galaxy. The shockwave had rippled through space, touching every world. Everywhere, beings were awakening to a new level of consciousness, a harmony of diversity that celebrated differences while fostering a deep underlying unity. Lyra looked out at the transformed galaxy, a smile playing on her luminous features. "Well, I'd say this ranks pretty high on the scale of unintended consequences." Zoe, now a being of pure digital energy, laughed. "Leave it to humans to accidentally kickstart the next phase of galactic evolution while trying to blow stuff up." As the reality of their situation sank in, a sense of awe and limitless possibility swept through the crew. They had set out to save the galaxy from the void, but in doing so, they had changed the very nature of existence itself. Lyra turned to her crew, her voice filled with wonder and determination. "Well, everyone, it looks like our adventure is just beginning. We have a whole new universe to explore and a new form of life to understand. Who's with me?" The response was unanimous. Human, alien, and former void alike, they were united in their excitement for the journey ahead. As the HSS Pandora turned towards the uncharted depths of their transformed galaxy, Lyra couldn't help but smile. It had taken the combined insanity of humanity, the wisdom of alien cultures, and even the unity of their greatest enemy. But they had done it. They had not only saved the galaxy, they had transformed it into something greater than anyone could have imagined. The adventure that lay ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and wonders beyond comprehension. But one thing was sure: with human creativity, alien wisdom, and their newfound unity, there was no challenge they couldn't face. As they set off into the unknown, Lyra felt a sense of pride and hope. Humanity had proven itself not just to the galaxy, but to the very fabric of reality itself. They had taken their place among the stars, and in doing so, had changed the very nature of existence. The galaxy would never be the same, and that, Lyra thought, was exactly as it should be.